birth of a wall, a nation's shield. The story of the Great Wall of China begins not as a single, massive structure, but as a collection of smaller walls built by different kingdoms. Around the 7th century BCE, long before China was unified, rival states were constantly at war. Each kingdom feared invasion, whether from its name, HBORS, or from first nomadic tribes to the north. So, they built walls, earthworks, and fortifications to protect their lands. When the First Emperor of a unified China, Qin Shi Huang, rose to power in 221 BCE, he had a radical idea: connect many of these separate walls into one massive barrier. This wasn't about beauty or symbolism, it was survival. Enemies like the Xiongnu horsemen were skilled raiders, and China needed a shield, but building such a wall was no easy task. Imagine mountains without roads, deserts with no water, and forests filled with danger. Workers, soldiers, farmers, and prisoners were reinforced to carry heavy stones, bricks, and earth for miles. They used local materials. In the mountains, stone. In the plains, tamped earth. The wall took shape like a scar across the landscape, twisting and turning with the land itself. For the people, it was both a source of pride and of suffering. Thousands died in construction, and stories spread that their bodies were burned, i.e. within the wall. This gave birth to one of the most haunting legends, that the Great Wall was a long graveyard. While that's not true, archaeologists confirm bodies were buried nearby, but not inside. It shows the pain that ordinary people endured to build it. At its core, the Great Wall wasn't just stone and earth. It was a symbol of a ruler's power, a message to enemies, and a reminder to the people that China was determined to protect itself at any cost. This was the birth of the wall, not as a tourist attraction, but as a desperate shield for a young empire. The myth of the endless wall. When travelers first saw the Great Wall, they often believed it stretched endlessly across all of China. From a distance, its twists and turns along the mountains looked like a serpent without end. Stories spread that the wall was so long, no one could walk its entire length in a lifetime. But here's the truth: the Great Wall is not one continuous line. It's a series of walls, trenches, and natural barriers, built at different times by different dynasties. Some sections overlap, others run parallel, and many parts have crew MB led away. The myth of the endless wall was partly born from awe. In the Ming Dynasty 14th-17th centuries, the wall reached its most impressive form: brick, stone, and watchtowers, stretching thousands of miles. Traders along the Silk Road carried tales of it to Europe, describing it as a marvel without equal. By the time Marco Polo's story spread, the wall had already become legendary in the Western imagination. Today, the total length of all sections combined is estimated at over 21,000 kilometers, still mind-blowing, but far from endless. What's fascinating is how this myth shaped China's identity. The idea of an unbroken wall gave people a sense of security, even if reality was messier. The wall wasn't just a defense system, it became a psychological barrier, symbolizing strength and unity. So, while the myth of infinity isn't true, the feeling it created was very real, that China was protected by a shield stretching beyond imagination. Section of the wall, especially under Emperor Qin Shi Huang and later during the Ming Dynasty, demanded unimaginable labor. Workers were often soldiers, peasants, or prisoners. They were taken from their homes, forced into harsh conditions, and pushed to the limits of endurance. Picture this: blazing heat in the desert, freezing winds in the mountains, and men carrying heavy stones with little food or water. Accidents were common. Exhaustion and disease spread quickly. For many, building the wall was a death sentence. Over the centuries, countless people perished. Legends claim that their bodies were buried inside the wall itself, giving rise to the haunting phrase, the longest cemetery on Earth. While archaeologists haven't found bodies inside the wall, burial sites nearby confirm that many workers never made it home. The myth of blood and bones in the bricks, while exaggerated, reflects the suffering that accompanied this construction. And yet, the story doesn't end in tragedy alone. The sacred invaders of these anonymous workers gave China one of the most enduring symbols of resilience in human history. Their sweat and struggle built not only a barrier but also a lasting identity. When we walk along the wall today, we're not just stepping on stone, we're walking on the legacy of countless lives that shaped a nation's destiny. Segment 5. The wall is a dragon, symbol of power. The Great Wall isn't just a wall. To the Chinese people, it became so that the construction of the wall, especially under Emperor Shi Huang and later during the Ming Dynasty, demanded unimaginable labor. Workers were often soldiers, peasants, or prisoners. They were taken from their homes, forced into harsh conditions, and pushed to the limits of endurance. Picture this: blazing heat in the desert, freezing winds in the mountains, and men carrying heavy stones with little food or water. Accidents were common. Exhaustion and disease spread quickly. For many, building the wall was a death sentence. Over the centuries, countless people perished. Legends claim that their bodies were buried inside the wall itself, giving rise to the haunting phrase, the longest cemetery on Earth. While archaeologists haven't found bodies inside the wall, burial sites nearby confirm that many workers never made it home. The myth of blood and bones in the bricks, while exaggerated, reflects the suffering that accompanied this construction. And yet, the story doesn't end in tragedy alone. The sacred invaders of these anonymous workers gave China one of the most enduring symbols of resilience in human history. Their sweat and struggle built not only a barrier but also a lasting identity. When we walk along the wall today, we're not just stepping on stone, we're walking on the legacy of countless lives that shaped a nation's destiny. The wall is a dragon, symbol of power. The Great Wall isn't just a wall. To the Chinese people, it became something far greater, a dragon. From above, the wall snakes across the land, winding over mountains and valleys. Ancient storytellers saw this shape and connected it to the dragon, a sacred creature in Chinese culture, symbolizing power, protection, and good fortune. The wall wasn't just stone and earth, it was the spine of a dragon guarding the empire. This imagery was powerful. A dragon is both a protector and a warning. It frightens enemies, but it also inspires those who stand behind it. For emperors, the dragon-like wall became a political tool. It reminded people of the ruler's strength and the divine protection of the empire. Travelers, too, carried the legend far beyond China. 2-4. Eyes, the wall was not just a fortification but a myth. Ikal beast carved into the earth. European visitors described it as a wonder beyond comprehension, almost magical. Even today, the dragon myth lives on. Tourists often describe walking the wall as walking on the back of a dragon. It has become a poetic way to connect with history. The truth is, no dragon built the wall, but the myth captain. Here's something essential. The wall isn't only about defense. It's about imagination, identity, and the way hands give meaning to stone. So when you see the wall twisting across the hills, it's not hard to understand why people saw a dragon, because in many ways, it truly embodies the truth about invasions and defense. One of the greatest myths about the Great Wall is that it completely protected China from invaders. Many people imagine it as an impenetrable shield, a barrier that kept enemies out for centuries. But here's the reality: the wall was never perfect. It slowed down invaders, yes, but it didn't always stop them. History records many times when enemies broke through or went around the wall. The Mongols, led by Genghis Khan in the 13th century, simply bypassed weak sections or bribed guards. Later, in the 17th century, the Manchus managed to breach the wall and eventually conquer China, establishing the Qing dynasty. So, if the wall couldn't guarantee security, what was its purpose? The answer lies in psychology as much as in death. Hence, the wall was a deterrent. Imagine being a raider. See, Ingan endless stone fortress with armed watchtowers. Even if you knew there might be weak spots, the sight itself was intimidating. The wall also worked as a communication system. Soldiers lit signal freeze from one tower to the next, spreading warnings across vast distances in hours. It created unity and vigilance. In truth, the Great Wall was less of an unbreakable fortress and more of a powerful statement. It said, "We are strong. We are organized. We are watching." And for centuries, that was enough to shape the balance of power. The myth of absolute defense isn't true, but the reality is still remarkable. The wall wasn't just stone, it was strategy, psychology, and politics woven together. The myths of secret passages and hidden treasures. For centuries, stories have whispered about secret passages inside the Great Wall, tunnels that emperors could use to escape, or hidden chambers filled with treasure. Travelers imagined soldiers vanishing into the stones, repairing miles away, or emperors stashing gold deep within the wall's foundations. The reality, while the Great Wall does have hidden features, most of them were practical, not mysterious. Engineers built small passages for soldiers to move quickly, storage rooms for weapons, and even simple shelters for rest. Some walls had concealed trap doors or side gates to surprise enemies. These features kept the wall effective, but they weren't the stuff of treasure hunts. The myths of hidden riches probably came from the wall's sheer scale. With thousands of miles of stone and brick, people believed it must hold secrets. Legends tell of emperors shooting precious artifacts inside, waiting for the day they'd be discovered. But archaeological evidence has revealed lost treasures within the wall. Still, myths endure because they spark imagination. Standing on the wall, you can't help but wonder, what lies beneath your feet? Could there be forgotten tunnels sealed by time? Could treasures still rest beneath collapsed Santo? Nes. In truth, the wall's greatest treasure isn't gold or jewels. It's the history it holds, the stories of emperors, workers, and soldiers. The myths of secret chambers may not be real, but to remind us that the wall inspires curiosity as much as it inspires awe. Why often picture one single, unbroken wall, stretching across China like a giant line drawn on the earth? That's one of the biggest myths. The truth is much more complicated. The Great Wall is not a single wall, but a collection of many walls, trenches, and natural barriers built at different times. Some sections run parallel, others overlap, and many have been lost to erosion. The wall we visit today, near Beijing, with its house watchtowers, is only a small piece of the whole story. Different dynasties built their own versions of the wall. The Qin, Han, and Ming all added to it, sometimes repairing old sections, sometimes creating entirely new ones. Over time, these sections stretched into a massive network of 40 cations rather than a single wall. This psychological impact went deeper than politics. In Chinese poetry and art, the wall became a symbol of resilience, sacrifice, and national strength. Even when it failed militarily, it succeeded as a cultural icon. During the Ming Dynasty, for example, emperors used the wall as propaganda. They portrayed it as proof of their power, a divine shield protecting the empire. This boosted morale among the people and intimidated rivals. Today, the wall continues to shape identity. It's not just a Chinese landmark, it's a global one. To the world, it represents the ambition and determination of human beings. To China, it remains a reminder of heritage and unity. The reality may be that the wall couldn't stop every invasion, but the cultural impact it created is immeasurable. It built not only a fortress but also a story that still inspires millions. The myth of one continuous wall. When people think of the Great Wall, they often picture one single, unbroken wall, stretching across China like a giant line drawn on the earth. That's one of the biggest myths. The truth is much more complicated. The Great Wall is not a single wall, but a collection of many walls, trenches, and natural barriers built at different times. Some sections run parallel, others overlap, and many have been lost to erosion. The wall we visit today, near Beijing, with its house watchtowers, is only a small piece of the whole story. Different dynasties built their own versions of the wall. The Qin, Han, and Ming all added to it, sometimes repairing old sections, sometimes creating entirely new ones. Over time, these sections stretched into a massive network of 40 cations rather than a single wall. The myth of one continuous structure comes from how Tra. Dealers described it. To the eye, the wall appears endless as it winds over the mountains. It's easy to imagine it being one great line across the land. But in reality, there are gaps, overlaps, and broken stretches. Archaeologists have measured all the known sections there, and the total length is about 21,000 kilometers. That's longer than the equator, but it's made up of many different walls, not one continuous chain. This myth, though false, carries symbolic truth. The idea of one unbroken wall reflected people's longing for unity. It suggested that China itself was strong and whole, even when reality was fragmented. So, while the wall isn't one endless line, the myth reveals something deeper. Humans crave symbols of strength, continuity, and unity. The wall's real story may be more complex, but a dream of a single, eternal wall is what captured bird hearts for centuries, the reality that inspires the world. When the myths fade, what remains is something far more powerful. The reality of the Great Wall itself. It may not be visible from the moon. It may not be one unbroken chain of stone. It didn't stop every invasion, and it holds no secret treasure chambers. But none of that diminishes its greatness. In fact, the truth makes it even more extraordinary. The wall is a monument to human determination. Think about it. Millions of workers across different dynasties, over centuries, contributed to this massive structure. Farmers left their fields, soldiers left their families, prisoners carried stones until their hands bled. Each person, nameless in history, laid a brick that became part of something larger than themselves, and the wall still stands today, not as a perfect shield, but as a testament to resilience. It shows what humanity can achieve when faced with fear, hope, and the dream of survival. More than that, the wall is a storyteller. Every stone tells of ancient wars, sacrifices, and longing for protection. Every tower whispers of soldiers who lit freeze to warn of danger. Every path reminds us that ordinary people built extraordinary things. This is the real power of the Great Wall. It's not just China's wall. It belongs to the world. It inspires us to believe that even the hardest challenges can be overcome brick by brick, step by step. So the myths, while fascinating, aren't the heart of the wall. The truth is, and that truth is breathtaking. Next time you see a picture of the Great Wall snaking across the mountains, remember, it isn't just stone. It's human spirit, frozen in time. And that's why the Great Wall of China will forever remain one of the greatest achievements in human history. If you enjoyed this journey through myths and realities, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. More stories of wonder, truth, and human ambition are waiting for you here.